Hello, my name is Veronica Yave, and I am the founder and lead designer of Orange Moon Floral, a floral design studio based in Oakland, California, with a focus on weddings, events, and photo shoots, and now virtual classes. So today I'm gonna go ahead and be teaching you how to create a funky, romantic spring arrangement that can be placed on any centerpiece during a party, entryway, or pretty much any occasion. So the first thing that we're gonna do is talk about the hard goods, so what you'll need other than flowers. So the first item that we're gonna have is gonna be your vase. So you're gonna need a vessel. I have this really cool like stone compote vessel, but you can really use anything. I would suggest something with at least a 5 to 6 inch opening, just because if you wanna make a hefty sized arrangement, that would be the minimum, I think. Otherwise, the vase could be a little bit too small and it could cause some toppling if the flowers get too heavy. So 5 to 6 inches wide in the opening. You can see mine. It's okay if it has a little bit of a taper, and I definitely prefer a heavier vase just because I do like to put in a lot of flowers. So you're gonna need the vessel, some flower clippers, or garden shears, whatever you have available, some floral bowl tape. So this is different than regular floral tape. This is actually waterproof. So what this does, it will help keep the mechanics in place. And the mechanics that I am talking about is this chicken wire. So I don't know if you can super see it. It's just this like super soft chicken wire that we're gonna use to hold all the flowers in. Some of you might be familiar with a flower frog, so it acts as the same thing. This one's just a little bit easier to obtain. Flower frogs can be quite a bit expensive, so I would suggest chicken wire if you are going to make an arrangement. So the next thing that I'm going to talk to you guys about is the categories of design that I like to follow when I am shopping for flowers and when I'm thinking about an arrangement that I'm making for somebody. I feel like shopping for flowers can be quite overwhelming. Going to the flower market or even going to your local grocery store. There are so many selections, especially this time of the year. Spring, everything is in bloom, especially here in California. So a way to make it less stressful and more fun is to break it down into categories. So the 5 categories that I like to use are foliage. The first one is foliage. And I'll explain each category as I pull them out so that you'll visually be able to see what I'm talking about. So it's gonna be foliage. The second one is texture. The third category is hero flowers. The fourth category is sidekick flowers. And then the fifth category are gonna be our accent flowers. So those are the 5 categories that I like to break down my flower purchasing and selection in. So I'm gonna go ahead and show you all of the ingredients that I have today, and I'll explain why I feel like they fit into those categories. I do wanna say that some of these flowers can fall into 2 categories, maybe even 3. It just depends on how they interact with each other and the style that you're going for when you're making your arrangement. So the first category, like I said, is foliage. So foliage is gonna be your branches, your greenery, all the things that are not your typical, not flowers. So today we're gonna be using boxwood, which I have down here. So this is a really super hardy green. It has a lot of branches. If you are making your first arrangement, or if you're making a ton of arrangements, something with a lot of branches like this is the best to use just because it has a lot of structure and it kind of creates this like net for your flowers to stay put. So it's really, really good for that. And I'm also gonna be using this clematis. So you can see that it is a flower, but it has a lot of greenery on it. So I'm gonna be using that for my foliage as well. The second category is gonna be texture. So for texture, it is gonna be the volume and the fluff. So if you think of the foliage as the like skeleton of the house, if you're building a house, then the texture is the insulation. So this is gonna be the fluffy stuff. It's gonna be the stuff that fills in and covers all the mechanics and kind of begins creating like the size and shape of your arrangement. So today we're gonna be using this viburnum, snowball viburnum. Super pretty. It's in season for a very short period of time, so I made sure to use it today. It's really pretty, really fluffy, has cool shape, and it's kind of like a flower and a greenery put together. So the third category is going to be the hero flowers. So the hero flowers is kind of the showstoppers. It's going to be the flowers that have the drama. So these are the largest flowers in the arrangement, and they act as an anchor. There's not too many of them in the arrangement, but they do take up a lot of real estate. So today our hero flower is going to be this anthurium lily. So these are really pretty. They have a really defined shape. And they take up a lot of space. So I have some of these today as the hero flower. And then the fourth category is gonna be the sidekick flower. So I call it the sidekick flower because they are the medium-sized flowers. They are the transitional flowers from the foliage to the hero to the smaller flowers. So today our sidekick flowers are gonna be these garden roses right here. They have like an orange in the middle with a pink on the outside. I picked this color specifically because I love when the transitional flower in size is also the transitional flower in color. So something that is dual colored, I think helps to blend the lines between the two different color palettes and the two different sizes. So this is gonna be our transitional flower, AKA the sidekick flower. So the next category that we're gonna do, the last and final category, is our accent flowers. So the accent flowers are going to be the smallest flowers in the arrangement, and they are gonna be kind of the flowers that you can pull out, float above, and kind of makes the arrangement super funky. So today we're gonna be using this sweet pea right here. So you can see the flowers are small, but they're really gestural. They have a lot of movement, and they're kind of like a unique flower. You don't see this everywhere. You can't get these at the grocery store. So that's gonna be our accent flowers, and we're also gonna use these cute little peach ranunculus right here. So this is gonna be our accent flower as well. I always like to have 2 accent flowers, just so that I can add a little bit something unique to the arrangement. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started building your arrangement. The first thing that I'm gonna do is take the chicken wire, and I'm gonna kind of crumble it up into a ball. I cut it, this comes in a big roll, and I cut about a 12-inch long piece, depending on the size of your vase. I always find this to be a good size. You're gonna crumble it up into like a little ball. Not super tight, you want it to still have space in the middle. So it's kind of like a little dome. I'm gonna crumble it up, and I'm gonna stick it into the vase. And this is gonna be your mechanics. So this is gonna be really helpful when you're putting the flowers in, because they won't just like droop all over the place and you won't have a hard time placing things. They'll kind of help keep everything stay put. So I'm gonna put that in there. It's okay if it sticks up above the vase a little bit. You can see that. And then I'm gonna take my tape. This is the waterproof bowl tape. And I'm going to just do a little crossover just to hold it in place. And I wouldn't worry too much about the tape showing on the vase because the flowers will cover it. A bonus item that helps me a lot when I'm arranging is having this like Lazy Susan is what it's called. It's super helpful because I do have a tendency to favor one side when I'm designing if I don't have it. So if you are making a centerpiece that's not going against the wall, that's going in the middle of the table, having one of these is super, super helpful. It's a cool little bonus, and you can get it like in any kitchen area in a home goods store. So this is a bonus item. So after I do that, this is pretty much how it's gonna look. It helps keep it down. This is the start of your arrangement, and I'm gonna go ahead and pour some water into that. I wouldn't fill it all the way to the top. I would fill it about 75%, just because when you start putting the flowers in, it does raise the water levels and you don't want any spillage. And you can always top off the vase after you're done with the arrangement if you put less water than that. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and get started. So the first thing I'm gonna do is grab the boxwood, and I'm gonna look for a piece that goes in in a pulling up direction. So you wanna always go with the natural direction of the foliage. The reason why is because it just helps the arrangement look a little bit more organic. If you're going for something a little bit more like Art Deco and you want it to have like a really like sharp shape and not look very gardeny and romantic, definitely have fun with it. You can always, you know, go straight up, go straight to the side, but I like to kind of keep it in a curve. So I think the shape that I'm gonna do today is gonna be an asymmetrical look. I'm gonna pull up this way and have something coming that way. So I just like to plan where I'm gonna place the foliage. And then when you're cutting your foliage and your flowers, you wanna cut in a 45-degree angle. And the reason being is so that it has more surface area to drink water. Perfect. So this is gonna set the standard for the size of your arrangement. So you always wanna start off bigger, just because you don't want it to be super crowded later on. So I'm gonna start off really big, and remember you can always trim back when we get to the end part. The last step is always gonna be to kind of look at everything and see if you need to remove things or if you wanna cut things down to reshape it a little, because it is gonna get, it's gonna move around a little bit as we're placing other materials in. So I think that's a pretty good start. Okay, so I'm gonna try to cut some pieces a little bit lower. You wanna make sure that when you are placing things in the water, you're cleaning it all up. So if you can see right here, there's leaves right here, but I know that this is gonna go in the water. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna process it down and see how that's super clean. Super important, definitely clean your branches before you stick it in the water, because what happens is if this water is full of all these leaves, it creates little homes for bacteria to grow, and the lifespan of your centerpiece won't be very long because the flowers will be in dirty water. So you just wanna make sure you're always cleaning up the stems before sticking it in the vase. So I think there. Perfect. So what I'm gonna go for today is an edgeless design. I always try to blend this harsh line between the vase and the arrangement. That way it just looks more natural. There's nothing obstructing the full scope of the arrangement. I think it's super important to focus on that when you're doing the greenery and the texture. So we'll do that with the viburnum as well. Okay, I'm just gonna spin this around and do the other side. So I'd say that with this size vase, you can definitely do something on the like bigger end of medium sized. One tip that I think is super important is when you are trying to figure out the size of your arrangement overall based off of, you can do it based off the size of the vase. So I'll look at the vase and see how tall it is, and I will want my arrangement to be that height plus 50% of that. So I think the arrangement at the very least. So this arrangement will be about right here. And I think that keeps it balanced, it looks proportioned to the arrangement, and it will help you with an idea of how large to make this structure before adding the flowers in. So again, cleaning the stems. So when you're pushing the stems into the arrangement, make sure you have a little bit of, make sure there's a little bit of tension. So you don't wanna like put it in and it's super loose, because it's not, you're not utilizing the mechanics that are in the vase. So you wanna push it in, make sure it's kind of getting weaved in through the chicken wire and through the other branches. Super important because it keeps your arrangement tight. Okay, so I think that's pretty good for greens for me. It's okay if there's still negative space because you are just at the beginning of your arrangement. So having a negative space and kind of imagining where there's pockets for certain flowers. Like I know I want to leave a little bit of a blank space somewhere towards the front, like right here, because I want to put the hero flowers there. I kind of want the anthuriums to droop over. So I'm already planning where I'm going to put things and kind of getting a feel for where there's space for certain flowers. So I think this is a good shape. I think I can also kind of loosen it up a little bit and get a little bigger. One thing that I like to do is kind of start cutting it into where I feel like it's getting crowded. So I felt like there could have been more of a hole right there and right here. Especially with boxwood, there's so many shoots coming off the branches that cutting space in between is totally fine. Okay, there you go. So the next ingredient that I'm gonna use is gonna be the clematis. So I'm still on the first category, which is foliage. I'm not gonna use too much of the clematis, but I do like that it has like this droopy look to it, which I'm gonna put it kind of just on one side. So I'll show you where I'm gonna place it. Another little design tip that I found to be like a way to elevate your florals is to cluster things. So having little clusters of specialty flowers, like this clematis can be quite expensive. So using it to fill out your whole vase as the greenery can be really costly. But if you still really want to use it, just using it as a little accent foliage is totally fine, because then it's just on one little side of the arrangement right there. So it acts as a foliage and an accent. So I think I'll do one more just to round it out somewhere up top. All right, so I'll turn this so you guys can see. So I love to balance the flowers. So if I put it down low on the back side, I'll try to put it up high on the other side. That way I feel like it's blending with the balance and with where the flowers are. It kind of mixes the color up. Okay, perfect. So the next category is gonna be texture. So with the texture, again, it's gonna be the fluffy stuff. It's gonna be what makes your arrangement super dense. It's also what's gonna be covering the mechanics. So like the tape, making sure the tape is covered, making sure none of the chicken wire is showing, and just kind of having fun with the shape. This is what I feel like this category is for. So with this snowball viburnum, I'm gonna kind of look at the shapes of them and see which ones I wanna use. This one is super fluffy, so this is definitely gonna go at the base of the arrangement. I see how heavy it is. Putting weight towards the bottom is, I think, super helpful because it allows you to put the accents up top. I'm already planning that accents are gonna be up top, they're kind of smaller, so having the heavier things at the bottom will help with the balance. Another fun tip is when you have a branchy stem, so like this is a snowball viburnum, the stem is super, super branchy. So to make sure it's drinking water, I like to slice the stems a little bit. So I'll show you guys what I mean. So just giving it a little slice like that helps it to drink water faster, just because these have a hard time when it's super woody. So I'm gonna kind of look at where I wanna place this. Okay, that was like a perfect, you see how it's kind of filling it up already? So there's that spot. I'm going to take another super fluffy piece, do the same thing, kind of put it towards the bottom so I can cover the lip of the vase. This makes such a huge difference, especially in photos, like in photos of like a table setting, just not being able to see the lip of the vase makes a huge difference. It just looks more elevated and just more intentional. Okay. So you can see it's already looking super dense. I think I'm gonna put one more piece. Kind of gonna follow it so it looks like one piece on this side. Okay. So you can see the weight of it. There you go. So it kind of has one long piece right there. And then I think for this last piece, this is another thing you can do when you have a super long stem like this. Ooh. So you can see that the stem is super long. So I think I'm gonna cut it in the middle and use it as 2 pieces. So now I have this like little shorty piece. And I'm gonna put it really down low so that I'm covering, again, the tape and the mechanics. Same as this one, cut it super low. I'm gonna turn it and cover this side. All right. Okay, well, it's getting big already. Okay, so now you can see that this added a lot of weight to the arrangement, a lot of insulation, but now it's gonna be so much easier to place the rest of your flowers just because everything will kind of have more to lean on. So the flowers are all kind of leaning in each other. If I were to pull this out of the vase, you'd see that all the stems are kind of crossed like this. That's another really important tip when you're arranging flowers, is to make sure you're sticking things in at an angle. This is just important because if you stick things straight down into the vase, they just will not stay still, especially if you're traveling with an arrangement or if you're making multiple arrangements. It's just so much harder when you don't stick things in at an angle. It also will help with the size, so. Okay, so that's that category. So the next category is the hero flower. So the hero flower today is gonna be this anthurium. So I'm kind of gonna look around where I wanna place it. I have 3 stems. So the way that I'm gonna balance it out is I'm gonna do 2 together and then 1 by itself. I do feel like that's an easy way to balance out the arrangement already. There's definitely ways to balance it by putting them all together, but I think for today we're gonna do the 2 to 1 balance. So I'm gonna look at my stems and I'm gonna pick the shortest one. And I'm gonna place it right at the front where I said. So right down here. And I'll turn it around so y'all can see. Okay. So I went ahead and placed this anthurium down here. I'm gonna turn it a little bit so that's nice and covers the lip of the vase. And then I'm gonna take these 2 and I'm gonna place them a little bit higher. So what these are is it's acting as anchors. They're kind of gonna be the first thing that you see when you look at the arrangement. So let me turn it towards me and then I'll turn it right back to you guys. And I feel like for me, with the hero flowers, for me, I tend to move them around later on if I feel like I found a better spot for them. But if you do that, just remember that sometimes they are hard to take out because they are the bigger flowers. Sometimes the stem is bigger, so it's gonna be difficult to move around. So if you do that, just be careful and make sure you're pulling out the flowers carefully. Like right now, I'm pulling out this clematis because I feel like it got a little shuffled. The easiest way to pull out the flower is to kind of give it like a little twist as you're pulling it out so that you're not pulling out too many things or loosening too much of the arrangement. All right, perfect. Okay, cut this one a little bit shorter. So I like to call this one the belly button. So the belly button is when I put a hero flower right in the middle, super down low. You may not be able to see it from the front angle, but you'll be able to see it kind of from the top, and it helps, again, to cover the mechanics. So covering the chicken wire. All right. Move this one. Okay, so let me show y'all the front. Okay, there you go. So I have 2 up here that are kind of touching each other. They're super up high. And then I have this one down low, down over here. Okay, so that's gonna be our focal flowers. I put 1 on this side and these 2 are kind of in the middle so you can see them from both sides of the arrangement. Because again, we're making like a 360 centerpiece. Okay, so the next category is gonna be the sidekick flowers. So the sidekick flowers today are going to be these garden roses, like I said, and I also have this Lisianthus. I haven't decided if I'm going to use it yet. They are also a medium flower. I just brought it for another option just to see where we're at because I love the color. I feel like having extra flowers helps me feel less pressure. Like if the garden roses weren't working out and I didn't like how it looked with the color palette, having like one extra medium flower is super important. I just think that it just gives you options. So if you're shopping for flowers, having 2 medium flowers is always a safe go, especially if you can't make a decision. Okay, so I'm gonna kind of look at this again and decide where I'm gonna put them. Since these are transitional, I like to put them on both sides of the arrangement. So I'll put some deep down in the middle, cluster maybe 2 or 3, put some up high on this side, maybe 1, and then pull some out this way. So I'm already kind of planning that I'm gonna like snake it through the arrangement. All right. The first one, I'm gonna start low. I'm gonna start super deep into the arrangement and then pull out. Okay, so there's the first one that I placed. And then when placing these flowers, anything with like a bigger face, roses, anthuriums, any of the medium and the sidekick and the hero flowers, when you're stacking them next to each other, or when you're placing them next to each other, we like to say stacking. A lot of florists like to say stacking the flowers because it gives it more dimension. And it also just looks more dramatic. So I'm gonna stack this, and what that means is they're staggered next to each other. So I'm gonna stack these where they're like almost the same height, but one's still a little bit shorter. Okay. Let me show y'all where that one went. Okay, so see how this is stacked? I have one just an inch shorter than the other. And then I'm gonna put this one on this side. And this one's gonna be a lot taller. So I'm gonna do some drama with this one. Perfect. And when you're doing that, putting a flower super like sticking out a lot, just make sure it's tight. Again, having that tension when you're pushing the flower in is so, so important because you don't want it wobbling around. Okay. I'm gonna turn it and put some on this side. So there's 4 on this side. I did like a cluster of 3 in this stack, 1 right here, and I'm thinking I'll put 2 more on this side. I like to have an odd number. So maybe I'll do 3 on this side. So we'll have like a total of 7. I think I'm gonna stick this one here. And then 1 more at the bottom. I'm gonna look for the ones that are like super, I already have that curve. I'm gonna put it at the bottom. So if you see this one, it's kind of already leaning in that direction, which is perfect. So I'm gonna cut that one and have it kind of droop over the lip of the base on this back side. And then I'll show y'all. Okay, so you can see it right there. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And then we'll put 1 more, I think, right here where there's like a little pocket. Okay. So super important to make sure you're checking the sides of your vase. You're not just designing front and back. You're also making sure that all sides are covered and all sides have like a beautiful design. You just want to be super intentional when you're designing this. You don't want to favor any sides. You just want to make sure you're paying attention to all the angles because you never know where the picture is going to be taken, right? I think you learned that doing in weddings and events. There's always going to be like that one centerpiece where there's like a little gap and you just wish you added like that one more stem. So I do see a hole right here. If y'all could see that, see how I can see the lip of the vase. So I'm going to take some of the clematis that I have and I'm going to fill that in. So I'm going to go back to my foliage category and I'm just going to fix that hole right there. I think that happened because things were moved around. So it's just going to happen naturally. So let me show you guys what I mean. So I'm just making sure, again, covering the tape. Perfect. So there you go. So it's nice and covered. So at this point, I'm gonna step back and kind of see where I wanna cut out. I'm feeling like the viburnum is a little bit heavy right here. So I'll show y'all what I would do if this happened, if this happens to you, if you feel like it's getting a little bit crowded and you still have a lot of flowers left to go. You can always thin it out. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. So let me just show you again. This is what it looks like right now. It's super, super heavy. It's beautiful, but I do want a little bit more space for the other flowers. So I'm gonna cut out a few of these heads. And if you're doing a tablescape or like a charcuterie board, saving these little, saving all these little flower heads is cool because you can just like kind of put little designs, flower designs everywhere and like round out your decoration. So let's see. Okay, wow, that made such a big difference. I'm so happy with that. I'm gonna cut that. All right, so can y'all see the shape is just like so much more clean on that side. And you can just see the flowers just a little bit more. It's not super crowded where this rose is. So yeah, again, feel free. When you have flowers, you do not have to use all of the stems. Like, you know, if you have greenery, you can cut out flowers, you can cut out. Just like feel free to shape things how you want them if it will make your arrangement look better. So I think I am gonna add one more piece of clematis before I move on to accents, because I do think that I wanna use this like light purple a little bit more. So I'm gonna put it right on this same side where I have the clematis already, because I love the clustering look. It helps give each flower their own like little moment. So let me do that. Okay. There you go. So I put this clematis right here so you can see that. And then I do see this anthurium kind of moved around a little bit. So I didn't put that one in tight enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and stick that in. Oh my gosh, okay, there. So that's super tight. So let me turn that around. Made the big difference. Okay, there. All right, so I think we're ready for the accents. So the accents, I think this is like the fun part. This is where you can kind of like put things in places where you normally would think, like a lot of people would say like this arrangement is finished, right? It looks finished. It looks really elegant, super romantic, but I always like to add something that's a little bit more funky, something unique, like an ingredient that people don't see that often. So the two that we're gonna use today, again, is gonna be this really pretty, like dark purple sweet pea, and this like really, really pretty peach ranunculus. So I think these two, it's funny because for my color palette today, I'll kind of go into that with y'all. I wanted to do something purple and orange. So the way that I select my flowers or my color palette is I'll pick two opposite colors. So purple and orange today, or at least like a shade of orange. And then I will buy everything in between to kind of transition that. So I started off with this when I was buying, and then I went to these ranunculus and I was like, all right, what can I buy in between that will blend those two together and soften the lines between those colors? So selecting this clematis I think was important because it shows the different shades of purple, and it kind of like pulls that dark and light of the purple into there. And then I think having these anthuriums is super important because of the peach stem in the middle. And then this pink is just having the two-tone with the peach at the inside, I think really, really ties in the two colors. So just having little pieces that match each other makes such a big difference. Especially things that you wouldn't think of, like the inside stem of this, matching this ranunculus. Like you normally wouldn't think of that, but when you see it together in an arrangement, I feel like it just elevates it and it draws your eye to see like, okay, this color palette is like really, really eye-catching and something that looks well-rounded. So I'm gonna go ahead and start with the sweet pea. This sweet pea is super tall. So I'm gonna try and see if I can get it pulling really far out in both directions. So let's see. Yeah, every time I use sweet pea in an arrangement, I always get the like question of what is that? What is that flower? But yeah, this is what sweet pea looks like. Sweet pea flower. Sometimes when we buy them at the market, they have like little peas on them still, which is super cute. So there's the first one. I'm gonna cluster it. Accents are typically the smallest flower, like I said earlier. So you wanna cluster them so that you can see them more. They're a little bit more visible. If I were to put this sweet pea kind of like all over the place, I think it wouldn't be as elegant. It just wouldn't showcase the shape as much and it wouldn't draw too much attention to it if it was just little bits everywhere. Think of it as when you are plating something, like a charcuterie board is a good example. You cluster things together that are small to create these like moments where they create drama, truly. So it's kind of the same thing with an arrangement. So I think that I'm gonna do the dark purple on one side, like really heavy on one side, and then just a teeny touch on the other. Again, just having that color cluster. And then I'll do the same thing with the ranunculus, but on the opposite side. So I'm gonna do like the peach ranunculus floating on this side more, and then just a few on the opposite. So there's that on that side, and then I'm gonna go ahead and place a few on the opposite side, just to spread out the color a little bit more. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think I'm gonna move this sweet pea out a little bit more because I do want it to be super, super tall. So I'm gonna angle it a little higher. There you go. All right, awesome. Another fun tip when you are placing accent flowers is to try to get them all on like a different spot on the grid. So I think of it like as a grid. You want each flower to just be on their own like intersection. That way there's like so many levels and there's a lot of dimension and it helps the eye travel through the arrangement. You don't want everything on the same because it'll just look like a big circle. So having things all on different parts of the grid is super, super important. So that's what I'm doing with the sweet pea. I'm cutting and adjusting to make sure they all are at different heights. So I think we're almost done with that. And then one more. Oh my gosh, this is such a cool piece. So when you get a piece like this, if you see it has like such a harsh angle, it's perfect for putting it on the side that it's pulling. So I was looking for a piece to go right here and it fits perfect. So you always want to go with the natural shape of the flower. All right, perfect. And I think this one's a little bit too tall now, so I'm gonna cut that out. Okay, perfect. All right, so we're almost finished. At this point, I kind of like to look at it again, step back, and make sure I'm gonna put the last ingredient in with like, you know, I'm gonna plan it strategically just because it is gonna be harder to put these stems in. Ranunculus have a little bit of a soft stem, so I like to make sure there's space. A little trick that I like to do, you can do this with tulips and with ranunculus and other soft stemmed flowers, is I kind of use my hand and I'll feel for where I want to put it to make sure that there's no like obstruction, or if there is the chicken wire and I feel like that's where the stem's gonna go, you can bend it a little bit and just make sure that the flower isn't gonna have too hard of a time going in, because it will probably have a hard time coming out if you place it and then you want to move it. So you just want to like plan out where you're going to put the last few stems, because this is going to be the harder to get them out once you place them. So I think for the ranuncs, here, I'll show you all the front. I'm gonna do a bunch of ranuncs on this side, somewhere right here, kind of floating. And then in the back, I'm going to cluster them because I feel like right here, there's a perfect pocket where it's just the viburnum. So there I'll put some peach coming out so that there's the color spread out on both sides. And then I do see that there's not as much pink on this side as I'd like. So I'm gonna go back and add a garden rose before I move on to my last accent. So, let's see. Okay, perfect. All right, so I placed this last garden rose. You can see it right here, facing upwards and out, just so that the color is pulled from front to back a little bit more. All right, so let me move these aside and then I will start to add the ranunculus. So when I'm adding the ranunculus, I look for the ones with the bigger heads. This is a flower that's pretty inconsistent in a bunch. Like there's usually 10 stems in a bunch and maybe 5 of them are pretty big and then the last 5 are usually a lot smaller. So I'll use the bigger ones towards the bottom again, and then the smaller ones will be the accents floating around the top. This way there's less likely to be breakage, and it just distributes the weight a little bit better. So I'm gonna start off with the bigger ones. I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting and placing them super low. Okay. Again, clustering, stacking. And again, stacking is when you put them right next to each other, but just a tiny bit above and a tiny bit lower or a tiny bit higher. So like that 1 inch difference makes such a difference, that 1 inch. So I think I'm gonna do 3 on this side. I'm gonna put one super low in so that I'm covering, again, this center part, just making sure nothing is showing. Perfect. Okay. And then let's start with the taller, smaller ones. I'm gonna turn it and put it on this side. So the opposite side of where the sweet pea was. This way it kind of splits the arrangement in half. I feel like that's always a fun strategy. Yeah, I feel like when, to me, when an arrangement has like these little clusters and of flowers, it just looks more intentional rather than just like sticking flowers all over and everything is spread out like confetti. This way the flowers, again, have just their own moments. They just look, you can focus on them a little bit more, and it allows your eye to travel through the arrangement because you're kind of looking for the other ranunculus, you know? So having some in the back, being like, oh, that's a pretty flower. Oh, look, there's another one. There's another one. I think it's super important. This just will make your arrangement different than, like, you know, the ones you see at the grocery store. Okay. Okay, I think we're just about done. I'm going to add one more ranunculus. Then I'll show y'all how to style it. And I do have like a little bonus ingredient that I brought just in case I felt like we needed it. And I think that we do. I think I'm going to use it. So this is where I place the accents. You can kind of see how it mirrors the sweet pea, but it's just a different flower, different color. So I think that looks pretty finished. And then my bonus ingredient that I like to add, because the style for my studio is always going to be romantic with a touch of tropical, are going to be these calathea leaves. So if you see, I brought these huge leaves. I feel like this is a really, really cool ingredient that will just change the mood. So to me, this is like whimsical, garden romantic, like a little edgy because of the color palette. But I think adding this is like, oh, like it has a little bit of like this unique attribute. So I'm gonna look for when I place it, and I think I'm gonna do 2 of them. And I'm gonna use it to kind of accent the anthurium. So I'll put one right here. So this is like a calathea foliage. It's like a plant that's really hard to take care of. Okay, so there's that one, and then I'm gonna put one more and keep it really long and kind of have it right next to it, again clustered and like low so that it's drooping out of the vase. This is like a really cool like statement bar piece, I feel like if you were having a party, this could be there, or like on a buffet table. All right. I actually kind of want to put 3. So let's see what that looks like. Awesome. I think I'm going to cut this a little bit shorter. All right. Oops. All right, perfect. So there's where I want to place those, just because I feel like it does give it a little bit more shape. And then in photos, it looks awesome. Like having these harsh lines for the foliage looks really cool in pictures. So there's that. I'm gonna go ahead and move these flowers out of the way, and then I'll show you guys how I would style this on a table. So one of my favorite things to accent an arrangement in is like a table runner. So I actually made these. This is just like a cheesecloth. It's like a 90 grade cheesecloth. And then I just dyed it myself, this like nice little peach color. So if you have like a bare wood table like this, I think it's like the perfect thing to have that's not like a full table cover, because you know, you don't want a full, not everyone wants a full table cover. I think it's a little too formal. So having like a little runner like this, I think really elevates the arrangement. So I would just place it right in the middle, kind of keep it a little bit loose like that. Maybe you can offset it, you know, if you have it arranged somewhere or on a table with food, you can kind of off-center it. And then I always like to use like little candles. I'm not gonna light these, but little candles here. I'll move all this. And then y'all can see, I save these hydrangeas so that we can use them for what I said earlier. When you have extra flower heads, it's nice to kind of sprinkle them around the table. So here's my candles. And then I'm gonna take these hydrangea and I'm just gonna place them kind of around the candles so that you have like a full tablescape design. Another fun thing that you can do is like use fruits, cut fruit, like little figs. A lot of people like to use like grapes or something to just kind of accent. You can even put it on top of the vase. But there you go. And that's your finished arrangement. Thank you guys again for having me, Google, and I hope you guys feel inspired to create an arrangement this spring or this summer. There's so many beautiful flowers available. Every time you go to the grocery store, just grab those flowers if you're thinking about it, and utilize the skills that you learned today to create something beautiful.